know, your ass better call somebody.
The energy revealed. Brooklyn to Queens, reppin' both hoods. Rob and CP, keep it fire, misunderstood. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline greens, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. Rob hype on the mic, CP's the fire spark. Together they ignite, voices like the park fans drift in jerseys. Legacy bold, the metropolitan story forever told. Turnstile spinning, the crowd floods the gates. This is family, no time for debates. Crack of the Batman, the roar never fades. Queens in the blood, it's how champions are made. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline gleams, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. 7-line swagger, vibes electric and wild. Mets legacy golden since I was a child. Orange crushed skies, let the battle ignite. Ride for the home team till the last fight.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the Amazing Mets pregame show here with your boys CP and Zach. Definitely appreciate you all being here in this very early morning, as it's not even noon on the East Coast right now. But we do have a pregame show, a preview between the Mets and the Angels, game 3 of this series after an exciting come from behind victory yet again last night. Zach, how you doing?
Doing good, doing really good. Excited to see the Mets come out there today and hopefully provide a little bit more spark offensively, more so than what we've seen lately, especially early on and from the top of the lineup. Lately, these past 2 games, it's all been the bottom of the lineup, with the likes of Beatty and Alvarez really carrying the load. So hopefully today we can get Lindor, Soto, and Alonso going, given their rough stretch over the past 10 games, and really just take a series and at worst stay half a game back of the Phillies heading into an off day and then what will be a pivotal West Coast road trip.
Absolutely. And that West Coast road trip starts with the San Francisco Giants, as we do have an off day tomorrow. So be sure to smash the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notifications buttons on all of our channels to get notified when we go live for a New York Mets off day show or a trade deadline show surrounding the New York Mets. And we'll be talking about some deadline moves this stream as well later on after we preview this game, because I know that Zach has been on the grind with some of these mock trade proposals and trying to make this team better. And as always, drop those comments in the live chat right here. Whether you are watching on the replay or watching live right now, make sure to comment your thoughts and opinions. And I want to salute Brad in the chat right now, because as you know, same thing with Alonso and Lindor, like you just stated, this guy is also due, especially for the long ball, in Mark Vientos. And honestly, I'd have to do some digging. I can't even remember when the last time he hit a home run was, to be honest. Do you remember?
I think it was
May?
May.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's been a while. It's been a while. So and we talked about just that on the post-game show yesterday, and actually the day before that, about how the bottom of this lineup is actually pulling its weight now, right? That was a concern for so long with the New York Mets lineup, and they're actually pulling their weight with Mauricio. We've seen Alvarez, ever since he's been back the last couple of games, get in on the action, and Brett Beatty. I mean, listen, Brett Beatty, what he's doing, not only over the past week, not only over the past 2 weeks, but over the past month, has been some really impressive stuff. And it's got to get us thinking, does that change the ball game? And does that change the conversation surrounding some trades in which Brett Beatty could or could not be a part of? You know, my thoughts and opinions for the longest time, and I know your thoughts and opinions about Beatty for the longest time. We haven't really seen eye to eye on that, But I do think, especially what David Stern said in the press conference, beforehand, his latest press conference, is that, Brett Beatty will probably remain on this team, figuring it out this season. He's got 11 home runs. The numbers in general are slowly trending upwards, and he's got that great glove no matter whether he's playing second base or third base. So I want to just take a second to, again, shout out Brett Beatty for some awesome play as of recent. But you talk about the lineup, and that's going to kind of transition me into this discussion surrounding this game from the pitching matchup side of things, because the Angels were undecided as of the post game that we did on the channel last night. Today, they made a decision. Brock Burke, lefty, is going to be on the mound as their opener. This is going to be a complete bullpen game from the Los Angeles Angels, and that's going to be a little bit difficult, I would have to imagine, for the Mets lineup to try to figure out, with a pitcher rotating in and out every 2 to 3 innings, maybe even every inning from the 5th inning and beyond. And that's why you kind of see the lineup being what it is right now. No Ronnie Mauricio, because we all know that he is not as good from the right side as he is the left. So you've got Vientos playing third base and Brett Beatty shifting over to second base. If you're playing matchups, Jeff McNeil has great reverse splits. He hits lefties really well, but he's not in the lineup. Instead, it is Starling Marte, the righty, who was just activated yesterday doing the DH duties. But what you see from the lineup perspective right here, Zach, is not what you're going to see later on in the game, if I had to bet, because you are going to see a plethora of Angels pitchers in this game. And I think an Angels beat reporter, as I was just, preparing the slides here, stated that all 9 of their relievers, or no, not relievers, but all 9 of their pitchers should be available, in this game. And so that just begs the question, first of all, with the lineup, but we'll get into Sean Manaea here in just a second. What do you anticipate from this bullpen game surrounding the Mets offense and trying to figure things out?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a bit difficult, especially for guys like Lindor and Alonso, and to a lesser degree Soto, considering how they've been playing as of late. They have been off balance and really haven't uh, got into a good groove since for the past couple series. So these are 3 players that you want to have a big day, and they're going to have to dig deep and really find something to be able to figure out this merry-go-round of pitchers that the Angels are going to be throwing at us. The bottom of the order, like you said, I expect there to be some switch-ups. I expect some of these guys to maybe not be in there come the 5th, 6th, 7th inning. If the Angels start getting deeper into their bullpen, they don't have any more lefties out there. You might see Mauricio make an appearance, whether that's a DH or at third base. And then from there, I would like to say you probably won't see Taylor out there, but you probably will see him out there come later in the game, just given his defense, unless the Mets are down by a ton and they need some runs quickly from Jeff McNeil over Tyrone Taylor. So it's just a matter of trying to pick your spots and really just attack once these pitchers start letting up. If they start letting up and throwing some pitches over the middle, you need to attack and pile on quickly, in bunches, because you're at the liberty of how good these guys are going to come out of the bullpen and perform. You could have guys that are just locked in and they're not going to give up anything, but if you get the one guy that is not prepared for this outing, he can go out and give up a bunch of runs, and you got to take advantage. And then you just hope that Sean Manaea on our side can have himself another good start and maybe get a little bit deeper into the game, like we've seen the past few games. We've actually seen our starters get a bit deeper, aside from Kodai Senga. So should be interesting for the lineup. I'm just hoping before an off day we can get some of these guys going heading into this West Coast trip.
Yeah, and I think the off day is going to pay huge dividends for the New York Mets tomorrow. I think huge dividends, especially with some of the guys that are definitely struggling, like Lindor, like Alonso. Lindor, I mean, ever since I forgot who put it up on X, but they put up a stat comparison before and after the fractured toe for Lindor. I mean, it's all speculation whether that's what is going on with him or whether it's a little bit more on the mental side of the hitting aspect of baseball. And it could be both, right? It could be that the foot is bothering him a little bit and he's just not as confident at the plate as he was earlier on this season. But the Mets really need to get Francisco Lindor going. That is first off and foremost. But as it pertains to this lineup, I really do think it's more so about Carlos Mendoza getting guys in and keeping them fresh and knowing that this lineup that you start off with is going to change in the middle to later stages of the game, depending on the situation. And getting Marte some MLB at bats here coming off the IL yesterday, and also keeping Tyrone Taylor fresh as I don't think we've seen Tyrone Taylor over the past couple of days. If I'm not mistaken, or was he in the lineup in the first game? Anyways, it doesn't really matter. I think that Mendoza is just trying to keep these guys fresh. And I think that's really what goes into the lineup. The lineup yesterday, which I consider, we didn't do a pregame yesterday, but I quote tweeted, the SNY Mets account. I said that this is probably right now the Mets' best lineup that they threw out there starting yesterday, and they only came away with 3 runs. So, it doesn't hurt to change things up, even though we may not like the personnel in the beginning of the game and the pregame. Strange things happen when you change things up. And Brett Beatty, I see him moving up slowly but surely in this lineup. We've seen Brett Beatty earlier on this season getting some at-bats in the 5 spot. Today, he's in the 6 spot. Usually, he's been consistent in the 7 or 8 spots. So it seems like he is, winning the trust back of Carlos Mendoza in terms of moving up higher in the lineup. And, I know that there's probably, right, left, right implications there with Marte, Beatty, Vientos and trying to split up some of the righties and what is a dominant lineup right now towards the bottom with righties. But I really do think that Brett Beatty can have a very meaningful impact towards the middle of this lineup down the stretch. And especially if Vientos continues to prove that he is going to struggle this season, if he can't snap out of it, he is not the 5-hitter, 6-hitter that we envisioned on this team. Somebody has to step up. And so far, that is Brett Beatty. Absolutely. I want to take a second before we talk a little bit more about this game from the pitching aspect of the New York Mets with Sean Manaea, because I think that you brought up a great point. I want to shout out everybody in the chat. We got, Hammer in the chat, Steven, David, salute. We got Caps, Daniel saying hello over from over in the UK. Salute to Daniel tuning in over there. Definitely appreciate that. Brad is in the chat. Oliver's in the chat. Salute to Ray. Salute CP and Zach, says Ray.
What's up?
Let's not let that guy have another 4-hit game. That was absolutely atrocious. That guy was killing the Mets every which way. So let's not have that happen. We've got King in the chat here saying Mets, Mets, Mets. Let's do it. Let's get amped up. It's noon on a Wednesday, but we're live in action. I appreciate everyone that's in this chat right now. Whatever your plans are for this afternoon, I know that there's a lot more people in the later afternoons / evenings that usually join these streams. But if you're in the chat right now, I definitely appreciate you all taking the time and talking Mets baseball, because the Mets have a good opportunity to get their first sweep since, I believe, that National Series at home, Zach, before everything fell to shit.
Wow, it's been that long.
It's been that long since they went to Atlanta and got swept there. And then they went to Philly and lost 2 of 3 before coming back home to play Atlanta again and splitting that series in a 4-game set. It's been that long since they've gotten a sweep. And so this is the perfect time to do so, because, usually I would be in the camp of saying, all right, good series. You got the series win. The sweep is the cherry on top. With the way that things have been going over the past month, I know that they're keeping pace with the Phillies, and the Phillies have been doing their jobs against the Boston Red Sox. So the Mets are not getting any help outside of their games. I think that this is a must-sweep series for the Mets, especially heading into the off day tomorrow and carrying that momentum over into the West Coast trip. I really do think that it would be in the greatest interest of the New York Mets to not let the Angels beat them in this game, even though they've already taken 2 of 3. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Just given the way everything is shaping up, I mean, You know you might drop one, a couple games on this West Coast trip, and when the Giants come back to City Field, those are two good teams there between the Giants and the Padres. So you got to take advantage. The Angels are not a good team. It looks like they're going to be sellers at this deadline, and for rightfully so. They need help. And the Mets should be able to beat up on them. And if they can get out of the series with a sweep, heading into a pivotal West Coast trip, and at worst, stay half a game back of the Phillies, that would be big. If they can gain a game, and go up a half game in the NL East standings, that'd be even better because then they have a little bit of leeway heading into, like I said, heading into this road trip. And I'm not sure what the Phillies have coming up, but they're a good team. They're going to be buying at the deadline. We already know that. We know they're going all in. They're ready to sell the farm to try to squeak one out while they can, because these guys are getting older. Contracts are running up. This is a team that may not be as good as they are next year. So that's a team that's going for it all, and we don't want to. We've given them every chance to take control of this division. They have not. Don't give them any more chances.
Yeah.
Let's close that door on them. They were not able to close the door on us. Let's work our way towards closing on them.
Agreed. Agreed. It's a two-way street. When we talk about the struggles of the New York Mets and how infuriated we are with the play and the production that we've gotten, I mean, the Phillies, again, from their perspective, have not been able to run away with this thing. And the Phillies upcoming have a three-game set with the Yankees. Then they go for three with the White Sox and then three with the Tigers. So that's six of the next nine games for them
Tough
that
series.
are tough series for them. And I agree. This is something that we talked about with Rob earlier on in this offseason slash spring training. And we were kind of looking forward to the deadline a bit when we got there, and stating that the Phillies are a desperate team. They are a desperate team because they've got win now pieces that are hitting free agency, mainly Kyle Schwarber, and they don't really know what the future outlook of their team is. There's a lot of speculation about Nick Castellanos and his future, also in a Phillies uniform as well. And so that is a really good point, that they are going to be ultra aggressive this deadline, and they're going to do everything possible to get over that hump because they've had a win now team for the past 3 seasons, and they haven't been able to get that chip. I mean, the closest they've been was, when was it? Was it
World
2022, I
Series
believe?
against the Astros or
The
the
Astros, 2022,
yeah
somewhere around there. But anyways, you get the
2022.
point here. 2022, right? That's 3 years in a row that they've had high aspirations, and the Mets were able to take care of business in the NLDS against them last season and boot them out of the playoffs. So they're going to be ultra aggressive. And there's a lot of speculation surrounding what David Stearns will and won't do and what he will and won't give up in terms of the prospects for certain names. And we'll get into that here in just a second on this stream. But yeah, I agree that there's going to be a lot of competition for some of these guys that are going to be on the trade market, not only with the Phillies, but also with the Yankees. They're going to be ultra aggressive as well, given the state of their team and their status in the AL. And it's going to be a seller's market, but buyers, there's going to be a lot of competition amongst the buyers, and the price is going to be driven up, unfortunately. So we'll see a lot of that over the next week. 8 days from now is going to be the trade deadline, and we're going to have a lot of content and shows for you all in the meantime surrounding that discussion. But let's talk about Sean Manaea here as it pertains to this game that we are going into, with the Mets being 14 games over 500 officially after last night. And the first two outings for Sean Manaea since he was back from the IL, even going back to the first half against the Kansas City Royals, and then his last outing, it's been 65 and 69 pitches respectively for Sean Manaea. So when we talk about the starters, and by the way, I think Frankie Montas had a fantastic performance yesterday. I know that you were live and in attendance for that, which is awesome
Agreed.
because he showed up. That was a classic, expectation of what we should be getting from a fifth starter in Frankie Montas that's getting paid, $17 million a year from David Stearns that was brought in this past offseason. So really good stuff from Frankie Montas, handing it over to the likes of the bullpen who got the job done. But Sean Manaea, and this is what my live chat poll over on YouTube is geared towards. So if you are in the live chat, make sure to go ahead and cast your vote about how many pitches we see Sean Manaea throw in this game, because I know that this is something that Rob has mentioned as one of his displeasures with the team, is that Carlos Mendoza could be being a little bit conservative in terms of the pitch count for some of these starters. When we talk about Clay Holmes earlier this season, which makes sense, first time starter ever since the first year of his career. Now Kodai Senga and Sean Manaea both coming back from the IL. We've seen them kind of, pitching and maneuvering around a pitch count. So it's been less than 70 pitches the first two outings for Manaea. Do you think that changes? Do we see more of a trajectory towards 80 pitches? If we're getting a little crazy, do we see 85? Like, I'm curious what your thoughts are, but I'm curious to see how it plays out with Mendoza, of how they accelerate and how quickly they accelerate the pitch count for Sean Manaea. And that starts today.
Yeah, I do think we get to 80 plus pitches, and I'll tell you why. So in the Royals game and then the Reds game that Sean and I pitched in, he hit 60 pitches against the Royals in his first game back, and then obviously he didn't go much more against the Reds. But I attribute that more to the fact that he was throwing a lot of pitches, and this is someone that's fresh off of two injuries, that delayed him, and he they don't want to see him throw a ton of stressful pitches in a short amount of time and potentially re-injure himself. So that's why I think he got pulled as early as he did in that Reds game. I think it was less so on the total pitch count and more so on the amount of stressful pitches he threw in certain innings. And then today against the Angels, I expect him to get to that 80 plus marker. The Angels are a team that strikes out, I think, the second or third most in the major leagues. They strike out a lot. With that being said, Sean Manaea in his first two starts has gotten 7 strikeouts against the Royals and 6 strikeouts against the Reds. I expect Sean Manaea to be able to mow through this Angels lineup and really carve them up. Since he dropped his arm slot, he's been a strikeout machine, being one of the better pitchers in the major leagues. And he basically hadn't missed a step coming back from injury. He's looked as good, if not better, than he did at the end of last season. I feel like today we're going to get a phenomenal Sean Manaea start. I think he's going to go 5 plus, maybe, get into the sixth, 80 plus pitches, and we're going to see what it's like with Sean Manaea tracking towards being at full power, and completely unlocking him and letting him go a full workload, as opposed to these shortened starts in which he has a pitch limit or an innings per or pitches per inning limit, whatever you want to call it.
I do agree with that. That's a great point by you, Zach, as well. As it's about the quality and the situation of these pitches too. When you have to, you have to factor in, if you're Carlos Mendoza, when you make the decision to pull a guy like that, especially coming off the IL as of recent. It's about, not maybe the total pitches, but how many pitches he's throwing in situations where there's runners on, and it's a high leverage situation, because that changes the ball game completely. Absolutely, but that's a bold prediction. We got a prediction on this show from Zach surrounding Sean Manaea. Zach is buying big for all of you bettors out there, especially with the strikeouts over under. I think
Over
Zach is
five and a
telling
half.
you all to take the over. And you've already looked at the line. Look at that. I know Caps appreciates that in the chat. He's like, what is the next bet that I should make? So there you go, Caps. If you're still in this chat, there's your over on the strikeouts. Take it. Because honestly, I agree with you. The way that he has been looking in his first two outings, he hasn't missed a beat. He hasn't missed a beat. And he looks just as deceptive as he did last season. And that, arm slot is just giving opposing hitters trouble. And we got Caps in the chat here saying, I already locked it in, brother.
Love it,
I
Caps.
love it. I love it, Caps. I love it. So, you get some betting, lines with us on the pre-games here sometimes too. But yeah, I agree. I'm expecting a good performance from Sean Manaea to set the tone. It's really, for me, and it has been over the past couple of days, really this entire first half, is this offense going to give him any breathing room? Are they going to let him pitch under a non-stressful situation, already being up 2-0, 3-0, and giving an early lead, right? Because that changes the pitch style, the pitch calling immensely, and just the overall feeling, I guess, for these starters on the mound, not being so tense and needing to be perfect all the time. And I really do think that, as great as these comebacks have looked over the past couple of days, I'm still just looking for that early offense, right? And maybe that changes with the matinee today. We're about now 59 minutes away from first pitch. It's not a 1:40 start time, it's a 1:10 p.m. start time, if I'm not mistaken. And we're going to get some early day action baseball. And hopefully the Mets offense has, you know, a plan to show up. They need to show up, and that's the bottom line. So, all right, that's the first 25 minutes of this stream. I think the bullpen, we'll talk about the bullpen because, you'll have some guys available. Brosbon's going to be available. Jose Buto is back,
Yes, he
ladies and
is.
hey, that is the news. Amongst the plethora of moves that the Mets made yesterday, another move was made today in that Jose Buto has been, reinstated to the team. He was coming off of an illness. We haven't seen him since what, June 18th, I believe. So it's been
June
like a
28th.
28th. Okay, 28th. So it's been about 3 weeks since we've seen Jose Buto should be a really big help in this bullpen that has been locking it down. I mean, Hergert, right?
They've
Like,
been great.
Reed Garrett, Rico Garcia. I mean, Rico Garcia has been fantastic, right? And he came back from the Yankees organization. We know that he was a DFA candidate by the Mets the first go around, but he's back in the organization this season. So it's been a bullpen that has been strung together by, let's face it, a couple of no names, and they've been paying the dividends of the New York Mets, especially with the injuries that they have had in the bullpen. So, and by the way, I mean Edwin Diaz just in that first game this series, we talked about it. They couldn't touch him. They couldn't touch him.
Incredible.
It's incredible. I mean, crazy. All right, let's get into some stuff that you've been posting, right? Let's
Sure.
transition this into some mock trades here. And the first one that you put up was for Robert Jr. And listen, I had this discussion with Nick, who was on the stream with me last night on the post game, and I asked him his thoughts and opinions about Robert. I've made my thoughts and opinions known about Robert as well. Clearly, the overall numbers are not great. You see the slash line there 206, 292, 344. Not good. I mean, it's not good. But over the past month, Robert Jr. has looked like a different version of himself. He has. And so I want to get your thoughts and opinions about Robert Jr. because we also discussed this hypothetical scenario about the Mets and the White Sox trading with one another and how, the White Sox aren't really the biggest, trade partners historically with the Mets and all that good stuff. But just talking about it, like let's let that idea go for a second. Let's just talk about the idea of the player and the positional fit and the splits of Robert Jr. Would you take a chance? Would you take a chance on a guy like this at the deadline?
I would, given what's out there. It's not like there is a definitive center fielder or center field, a corner outfield to move to center field candidate out there that is a direct improvement. Now, where Luis Robert improves over Tyrone Taylor, not necessarily always as a hitter, but the upside is there. You know that Robert has MVP type talent. He was a top 12 finisher in 2021, if I'm not mistaken, 2022, one of the 2 years. He was an all star that year. This is someone who has big tools. He can be a big player for the Mets or any team. And it might just be that he needs a change of scenery. It really just might be that. And so, yeah, I would take the gamble on him because given where the White Sox are out, his value, Luis Robert's value, he's not going to cost that much in terms of talent that's going to directly impact the Mets' future over the next couple, like 2 to 3 years. It's going to be prospects that are a bit further away, higher upside, just to kind of replenish a farm system that is not amazing. It's a solid farm system. So could be a trade that the Mets make essentially just to take a swing, because this would be something that is no definitive upgrade, but you have the potential of being much better than Tyrone Taylor, and you know what he does against left-handed pitchers, which is an area in which the Mets struggle against, oddly enough, given a lot of the righty power bats we have in this lineup. So it'll be interesting to see if something like this could even materialize. If the Rob trade them all, if something like this can materialize, given the relationship between the Mets and the White Sox, but hopefully some fences are mended and we can make a trade because I think this would be a definite improvement over what we have in center field at the moment.
I agree. Unless you're talking about McNeil in center field, like I understand that Tyrone Taylor is an all-world defender. I understand that. But just with the power upside of Robert Jr., I would take the chance to get Tyrone Taylor out of this lineup on an everyday basis 100%. And I think that this fan base, like, just not overvalues, because I think that's the wrong word to use in this situation, but I think that they're selling this team short on what Tyrone Taylor has produced offensively so far this season and how much of an upgrade is needed offensively in center field over a guy like Tyrone Taylor. Tyrone Taylor, great fourth outfielder, not a starting center fielder on a World Series caliber team. It's just not true. Like, you cannot have that. And so I agree from that aspect. But one aspect that we are not talking about in this scenario with Robert Jr. is that there is another team that we literally just talked about that needs a center fielder that can actually hit a baseball. It's the Philadelphia Phillies. And
Yeah.
if you all don't think that the Phillies would take a chance on a guy like Robert Jr. and his upside over a guy that they have that's posting mediocre numbers in Brandon Marsh or Rojas, right? That they've got in center field right now, you better believe they would make that move in an instant. So I'm not saying the Mets have to do it just because the Phillies are going to be in on a guy like Robert Jr. and you want to take him away, from that organization. But I don't like if you all are saying no right now, and then we see Robert Jr. go to the Phillies, it's going to be a big I told you so moment because I just, no, historically speaking, you know how it's going to play out. The Mets will be interested. They won't get the job done. The Phillies will get the job done. He's going to go and rake in the second half for the Philadelphia Phillies, and everyone's going to be up in arms and saying, "Oh, I wish we got Robert Jr. Why didn't?" Because most of this fan base, from what I'm seeing, is that they don't want Luis Robert Jr. And you know what? It's an upside move. I'm not selling you all
Yeah,
that his numbers are great, right? I'm not. I'm not. But it's a tricky situation
it
from the
is.
aspect of not the overall numbers, but from the aspect of if you don't make this move, your division rival, who you are chasing currently, will make that move, and it's just gonna be that sort of, oh damn, I wish we did that at the deadline when Luis Robert is on a run like Jorge Soler for the Braves back in 2021. So
Exactly.
I look at it from that lens. Should the Mets be making moves just to make moves because the Phillies are going after some guy? I also don't think that's the wisest
No.
decision, but there is a little bit of that kind of thought in the back of my head. What about you? Have you looked at it from that lens at least?
I haven't really thought about it in that regard, but that's interesting that you mentioned that because the Mets and the Phillies are going to be in direct competition with each other for uh, a lot of pieces at this trade deadline. The Phillies are in the market for a third baseman. The Mets have been linked to Eugenio Suarez. Whether they end up going for him or not, it's a different story. The Phillies need a ton of bullpen help. Their bullpen is in shambles. The Mets want two bullpen arms at this deadline. They're going to be in direct competition with each other for that. And then the Mets obviously have talked about upgrading in center field, a position you just mentioned that the Phillies do need to upgrade in. So there is going to be players that the Mets get that the Phillies were after, and vice versa. So there's going to be a lot of that, from both fan bases. Like they wanted that guy, or maybe they didn't want that guy. The other team gets them. They go out there and they're killing it for whether it's the Mets or the Phillies, and then the fans are up in arms like, why didn't we go after them? Well, we have a team that we're fighting with for first place in the NL East that has very similar needs to us. So it'll be interesting to see how all of that plays out. I'm also interested to see in what the White Sox decide to ask for in return because there was a report that did come out shortly after I made this mock trade that they're looking for two back end top 20 prospects. Now Eli
Will
Serrano
Salmon,
is,
right?
yeah, Will Salmon, and Eli Serrano is basically that. I'm going based off of MLB Pipeline's prospect rankings. Each source has their own different prospect rankings. I also look at Metsmerize. They had, I believe, Serrano right at 20, in the midseason update, Jace Hampson out just outside the top 30 at 37, I believe, or 36. So maybe they're looking for a little bit more. The White Sox, while maybe not in full control of where Luis Robert, or what they get for Luis Robert, given how he has performed over the past couple of seasons, they still are in control because he is under contract for another uh, 2 years after this season. So the White Sox do still have control of whether they trade him or not. If they don't like the
Yeah.
return or they want more, they want to roll the dice and let Luis Robert come back and try to up his trade value come next trade deadline. They are well within their right to do that. So I really at this point, not only do I not know if the Mets are gonna be able to trade for him given the relationship, given the fact that there are other teams out there that are probably going to be asking for Luis Robert, but I don't know if the White Sox will end up trading him because his value is at such an all-time low. Obviously it's come up in the past 30 games with how he's played, but it is still incredibly low as opposed to where it was, just a few years ago.
Yeah, but the thing about it is that I don't think, and I think the White Sox know this, especially for not even just Robert Jr., but most of the trade candidates that they've got on that team, is that nobody's excited to play there. Nobody's excited to play there. You think Robert Jr. wants to be in a White Sox uniform. Nobody is excited to get up every single day, go to the ballpark, put on a White Sox uniform, and go play baseball over there. And that's why the change of scenery thing for Robert Jr., I think, is definitely very real. I mean, he is a great defender as well. So, like, if you're talking about speed and just overall range in the outfield, I mean, the guy plays a really good center field. I mean, that's a viable option. If we're talking about Tyrone Taylor's defense, no, I think Tyrone Taylor's still better defensively, but it's not like Robert Jr. is a scrub out there with the glove in center field. But I mean, I'm looking at July, 10 games started, 38 plate appearances. He's hitting 364 with over 1,000 OPS. The power, I guess, is still left to be desired. He's got 10 home runs this season. It's one of those things where, yeah, you bank on the upside, but I just think that a lot of fans look at these overall numbers that we have in the middle of your screen. And listen, if you're saying Eli Serrano and Jace Hampson, if that's like the hypothetical move as what you put out there, right? It's a mock trade, speculation. This is all speculation, but you're telling me that you wouldn't make that move?
Oh, in a heartbeat.
You know what I mean? Like for the upside of like that's crazy. That's crazy
In
to
a
me.
heartbeat.
So yeah, in a heartbeat, I do that because like
Not to
what
mention,
other
this is someone that also has 25 steals while getting on base less than, 3 times out of 10. He's someone that is still
yeah.
stealing a ton of bases up there amongst the league leaders while not being able to get on base at a consistent clip. This is someone, if he could even just get on base, at a 330, 340 clip, he would easily steal 60, 70 plus bases a year with his speed, and
Yep.
his base running ability. So this is someone that it his potential, we've seen it, and it still may be untapped. It's something that the Mets may look at him and just try to unlock. 2 years, we don't really have too much. We don't know how close Jet Williams is to being a major leaguer. He might be one more full season in the minors away. Same with Carson Bench, and they would be options for center field or second, or Joe Williams' case, second base potentially. So they're not necessarily in a position where they have prospects ready to go right away and take that position where you would be afraid of clogging it up for one of them. Just
Yeah.
banking on the upside of a player as opposed to letting guys that are really killing it down in the minor leagues come up and take that position full time. So
You know how I look at this. I know that Starling Marte has a lot of fans in this fan base, and rightfully so. He's a good platoon bat. I don't like platoon bats, but like he's a good platoon bat that is quite often injured. As we've seen with his recent IL stint. This is a guy that is younger than Starling Marte, and it would be a Starling Marte replacement because Marte is not going to be on this team next year. His contract is up. At this point of his career, with what he's done so far, Robert Jr. is a platoon bat with the upside to be an everyday potential player. Not this season, probably, but probably next season if he proves himself in the second half on whichever organization he is. So I looked at this. If the Mets made this move, that would be Marte's replacement. But I know that a lot of Mets fans don't want to think about it that way because they love Starling Marte. They don't quite like Luis Robert Jr., and that's fine. But that's how I equate it. That's what I equate it to. Let's take a look at the second one here because I think this is a really underrated name that not many people are talking about. Ramon Laureano from the Orioles. And Gregory Soto, who's a lefty, fireballer, little bit erratic at times with the command, but the overall numbers are pretty decent for him this season with the 3.67 ERA, as you can tell on the screen by the tweet from Zach. And this is the trade package that you put together. Ramon Laureano and Gregory Soto coming over to Queens in exchange for Drew Gilbert and Jack Wenninger. That's a good deal too. And I'm not going to lie, I would also make this deal too. So explain the thought process behind this one. I'm very curious because this one actually really caught my eye because I think a lot of people are sick about the Robert Jr. trade talks, but I'm surprised that not many people are talking about Laureano. To be honest, I mean, he's hitting 280, right? I mean, he's got really good numbers. Whether you take a look at the WRC plus, WOBA, whatever you want to do, he's got good numbers and he is a good offensive threat for any contending team in the second half.
I think a reason that he's not looked at as much is because at this point in his career, he's pretty much looked at as a corner outfielder. But the Mets do have a need in center field. He did come up as a center fielder. He was a very good center fielder for years. He still has a cannon, and I wonder if maybe the Mets would roll the dice on maybe putting him out in center field, at least gambling with him a bit out there to see what could happen. If not, maybe even consider the idea of moving Nimmo back into center. I know we've talked about that. We don't think it's happening, but given the landscape of this deadline, it might be behoove the Mets to be a bit creative in how they figure out how to improve this team. And if all else fails, he would be the best DH on this team. I mean, he's better than Marte. He's better than Winker. He's better than Mark Vientos right now, at least in terms of this season. And he's someone, even though his splits, he's hitting lefties worse than righties over his career. He's been a lefty killer. So I expect that to revert to the norm, and him to improve his numbers come the end of the season. And Gregory Soto is a good arm, good left-handed arm, someone the Mets are looking for. And given all the reports, it looks like they're not necessarily going for the top end of relievers. They're going to be going for good relievers, but they'd rather have quantity over necessarily quality. They wouldn't necessarily be in the market for a Duran type to be the setup man for Diaz, more or less getting guys that are, back end of the game relief, seventh, eighth inning guys to be the setup men, or just set up by committee. Having a few guys that you trust in that role between Brooks Raley, Reed Garrett, whomever else they decide to get at the deadline. And Gregory Soto would be a good foil to Brooks Raley. Raley's more of a soft thrower, whereas Gregory Soto's got that fastball that can clock up in the high 90s. So it'd be interesting to get different. It'd be good for the Mets to get different looks from that side of that left side. And this would just be an overall trade that improves this team drastically, in my opinion. They finally get that second lefty, and they get a good right-handed bat that they desperately need.
This was my favorite, probably mock trade that you tossed up there because I think that you can essentially solve two problems on your team with one trade in an organization that is definitely going to be sellers and underperforming in the Baltimore Orioles. Agreed that you need another lefty, a complete opposite look between more of a fireballer with Soto versus a guy that's a soft tosser like Raley. And it's so great that Brooks Raley is back because he is going to just pay immense dividends for this team in the second half, especially when both of the lefties in the first half went down early on in the season. Just trying to piece something together from the left-handed side out of the bullpen. And Laureano, that's a competent bat right there. I do agree with you when you're talking about the reliever market, Duran, Clase. First of all, I don't even know if those teams are going to trade those guys. I think Duran might be a little bit more likely than
It would
Clase,
cost a
I would
lot. It would
imagine.
cost a lot.
It'll cost a lot. It's another team in the Phillies that I think they would make that kind of move. There's been speculation that they're interested in Joan Duran from the Twins because they need that kind of bullpen arm. The Mets clearly have Edwin Diaz, so it would be a good idea to get not maybe a Clase or Duran. And I've talked about, one of the two on my channel and one of my videos, but it would be a really good idea to get a competent setup man for Edwin Diaz in the 8th inning, and then you can keep Reed Garrett and Brazaban in that 6th, 7th inning role, respectively, mixed in with the lefties and Soto and Rayleigh. I think that's a competent bullpen in the second half. And I think that one of the relievers on the market, I'm gonna make a video about him. I'm gonna post it probably either today or tomorrow. But there's a certain reliever on the market that I think will really fit the bill. It's gonna be a lot of competition. The Yankees are gonna be in on this guy as well, without a doubt. But yeah, we'll talk about him on the channel. But yeah, I like this a lot, man. I like this a lot. And I think that could definitely get it done. If I'm the Mets, I'm a big Drew Gilbert fan. I've always been a Drew Gilbert fan. When
Yeah,
the
me too.
2023 deadline happened for the Mets, I was like, this guy is my favorite prospect that has come over to this organization, right? And he's underperformed as of last season and this season thus far, although he's catching a little bit of a hot streak down in
Mhm.
AAA. I don't see a world, because I've seen a lot of people in this chat right now talking about Drew Gilbert and Jet Williams as potential solutions in the outfield for the Mets on a regular basis in the second half. I don't know if the Mets will do that. I
They
don't
already
think that
said
they're
that they're
as
not
hot.
calling up any position players.
I was going to say they're not as high on these position players as they are the pitching prospects in terms of making a regular contribution for the Mets down the stretch of this season. So I think Drew Gilbert is going to be a big trade chip for the Mets. I think Luis Angel Acuna is going to be the same thing for the Mets. I think that both of those guys, if the proper moves present itself and themselves to David Stearns and the Mets, that those two guys will probably be at the front line of what the Mets want to offer. And then you can start dipping into you know bigger trade aspects if David Stearns finds himself in those conversations right behind the scenes. But we'll see. That's just kind of my general feeling right now. So what else you got? Anything else you want to talk about, Zach?
Uh, no, I think we kind of hit everything on the head. I mean, I'm just ready to see what happens at this deadline. I mean, we still really don't have a clear picture of who is 100% selling. I mean, we have a few teams in mind: the Orioles, the A's, Marlins, teams like that that will most likely that are selling. How much we don't know, and outside of that, you still have teams hanging around like the Diamondbacks, the Guardians, the Twins. While they know they're listening to offers on expiring contracts, they are not in necessarily full sell mode, selling guys like Griffin Jacks or Duran. So it'll be interesting to see what happens over these next, we're pretty much at a week at this point, and another win today just further proves to us Mets fans and Stearns that he should be buying. I know Jeff Passan came out with a report, I think it was today, that the Mets are buying, but they're not in an all-in state, which I agree. I think this is a deadline that's a bit weak, and it's been inflated by the amount of buyers and lack of sellers. So I think this could be a deadline where the Mets look to improve in creative ways, but not necessarily sell the farm for just this year, especially when you have so many pieces that are close to the major leagues that you expect to make an impact in the next year or two.
It's a gamble to piss off this Mets fan base like that, though, because if you're going to be relying on the prospects, especially McLean and Sproat, to come in and make contributions and not be at the top of the market when the Phillies and the Dodgers probably are. I mean, the Dodgers are. I think Tanner Scott just got injured. They had another reliever injured as well. I forgot the guy's name. So the Dodgers are kind of hurting over there for pitching.
Yeah.
And you know what the Dodgers are about. I mean, they're going to make the
Oh yeah.
necessary moves. They don't care. So in an open NL, I understand that it is a seller's market, as Ray is saying here in the chat. I'm not advocating to make irrational moves to sell
Mm.
off the farm, but when you have a
Oh,
roster that is capable of going really far, you
you
need to
got to
be
improve.
methodical but aggressive. I mean, I would
Exactly.
expect
Yeah.
that to be the idea. And we'll see. We'll see. I'm not necessarily liking the initial reports that I'm hearing, but David
What if
Stearns might be. Go ahead.
for example, like if they pull off a deadline, let's say they pull off a trade for, like you have on the screen, Ramon Laureano and Gregory Soto, they go with that. You know, regardless of what the return is for the Orioles, I do actually, you know, kind of thinking about it a little bit further, I do think that the Orioles might want a little bit more, maybe another pitching prospect that might be a little bit further down in the system. But then they go and get a Willie Castro from the Twins, and then they go out and get another right-handed reliever. I forget who just got named from the Twins. He's got some really good numbers, and I forget his name. I'm
Is it
drawing
a
a blank.
right-hander?
Yeah,
Jax? No, not
no, not
Jax, right?
Jax. He's older. He's like 30 something.
The only other guy I know is Colomb, is who's a
I'm,
lefty.
yeah, I'll send it to you after.
Okay.
I can't think of it. But if they go out and they add two bullpen arms, then they add two bats, you know, Ramon Laureano to be DH and a Willie Castro to play second base and move McNeil to center. What are we looking at then? That's a great deadline, in my opinion.
If
But it's also not
they
a deadline where they went out and scrape up a lot of prospects.
if they do that, hypothetically speaking, Laureano, Soto, Castro, who I made the video on with your mock trade for Castro as well. I talked about
Yeah.
it. If you missed that video from yesterday, go check it out. It's in the description down below. And it depends on the righty reliever that they get. If it really
Let's
depends on the righty
Anthony
reliever.
Bender. Anthony Bender.
Sure, I'll take it. I mean, I would take that. I know a lot of
Anthony
fans
Bender's got
would
2 years
be.
of 2 years left to control arbitration too. He's cheap.
A lot of these guys are having career years though this year.
I know it
You don't think they
makes it
add a
scary.
starter? You don't think they add a starter?
I think if they had a starter, it's an Edward Cabrera type. I think it's someone that's on the upswing. You're going to be buying high. You are going to be buying high, but that is someone that you are looking to buy on the upswing. That is on the trajectory of a guy that could be a top starter in the league, but not necessarily there yet, like a Joe Ryan. Joe Ryan, you're going to be buying. You're going to be paying top dollar,
Yeah.
top dollar.
I don't think Joe Ryan is moving from the
I don't
Twins,
think Joe
honestly.
Ryan's moving. If I think he does, it's going to be a massive haul. It's going to be very similar, if not bigger than Garrett Crochet's return that the White Sox got. Edward
Listen,
Cabrera would be someone I see moved. I think it would be a very comparable return to what Garrett Crochet got. I think you could acquire Anthony Bender in that trade as well. And the Mets would ship over a decent bit of prospects. I mean, I put out a mock trade. It would be something like Mauricio, Brandon Sproat, I forget. I think Nate Dome was I
yeah,
put in
yeah.
there, and then Jake Reimer, and one other prospect, Nick Morabito. I think I put in there. So it would be a haul. You would be
Dude,
sending
I
over a ton of
honestly
talent.
I was gonna put that mock trade up here, but one, I couldn't fit it on the screen,
Yeah, it's
right?
big.
Because it was just such a haul going back to the Marlins for those two names. And then two, I think a lot of Mets fans would faint if they saw that trade package with Sproat and Mauricio headlining that. But listen, Edward Cabrera, there was an early report, a couple weeks ago saying that there's heavy interest in Cabrera from the Mets alongside the Cubs,
Exactly.
I believe. He had elbow discomfort. MRI was clean, I guess. He was back
Pitched
yesterday,
last
made a
night.
start.
Pitched
Five and
well.
2/3 innings, one earned run given up, 6 strikeouts against the Padres. Really good lineup. Got a lot of talent. And Bender, he's just having a career year. I mean, he had a
He's
really good
having
year
Yeah, he's having a career
at
year
20.
with also his worst walk and strikeout rate of his career. That's someone that you might be able to fix a little bit mechanically,
Yeah.
and really unlock his true strikeout stuff. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see if the Mets are in on a starter. I definitely expect them to go bullpen heavy, no matter what the combination is. You need two relievers. I think one from the left, one from the right. We'll see if they add a utility type bat or a platoon center fielder. We'll see. We'll see. But that's going to do it for the pregame show here. We're just about 53 minutes into the stream. I definitely appreciate you all. We had first half of a game preview upcoming as the Mets look for the sweep today, a matinee game in 30 minutes. First pitch. We will have post-game action for you all. As of right now, the streams will be going up soon. I think Rob's going to set it up. I think you're available
Perfect.
for that too. It's going to be all three of us,
Yeah,
right?
all three of us.
all three of us on the post game shows. So make sure to subscribe, hit the notifications buttons. I'll have a video out for you all talking more bullpen trade targets in either tonight or tomorrow, whenever I get to that. And I appreciate it. Thank you all so much. Let's go Mets. Let's get that sweep. And as
Go
always,
Mets.
hit those thumbs up buttons and subscribe. Zach, I appreciate it. Peace.
Thanks, CP. Later.